Now, the Morrison government has simultaneously been slammed and issued a warning this week over its climate change policies. And it's come from none other than former government minister Matthias Cormann, now Secretary-General of the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development. The OECD report suggests Australia commits to net zero 2050 carbon emissions and get there by a carbon tax. I think that means over the public's dead body. Meanwhile, as I mentioned earlier, front and centre of the energy conversation at the moment is, will this historic nuclear submarine deal lead to a future where Australia finally legalises nuclear power as an energy source? Surely if we've accepted the existence of nuclear power within our Navy, it's not such a long hop to adopt that kind of clean energy for our national energy grid. The Federal Energy Minister, Angus Taylor, joins me now from Goulburn. Minister, thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Great to be with you.
Good to have you on board. Now, let's begin with the OECD. How can they possibly accuse Australia of not doing enough when we're not anywhere near the top 10 CO2 emitters in the world?
Well, can I just say, Chris, to your introduction, you said over the public's dead body, will there be a carbon tax? Over my dead body, will there be a carbon tax? Whilst I'm Energy Minister, we won't be doing it, I can assure you of that. But, you know, I keep saying to people in this area, and I've said it to Matthias, look at the facts. Look at the facts. Our emissions are down almost 21% since 2005. That's faster than Canada. It's faster than New Zealand. It's faster than the United States. It's faster than Japan. We've come down further than all of those countries. We've come down more than the OECD average. More than the OECD average, which is, you know, and this came from the OECD, and certainly a lot more than China, where you've seen rapid escalation of emissions since 2005. So we're getting on with the job. It's practical Australian approach to this, deploying technology in sensible ways. The really notable one that many of your listeners or viewers will know well is putting solar on your roof. It's happening at a rapid rate. 1 in 4 Australian households now with solar cells on their roofs. Energy efficiency initiatives happening right across our industry, small businesses. And of course, farmers have played a very important role in bringing those emissions down too.
I'm a bit concerned, though.
We're getting on with the job.
I'm a bit concerned, though. This is your old mate, Matthias Cormann, demanding this. Has he been a closet climate change warrior all this time?
Well, that's a question you'll have to ask Matthias. But Matthias knows the facts, I can assure you of that. He had a spreadsheet of the facts with him when he went around and became the head of the OECD in his campaign. So he knows the facts. And it's important that people recognise the facts. Australia has done unbelievably well in a sensible way, and that sure isn't with a carbon tax. Labor put in place a carbon tax, and they forecast our emissions last year would be well over 600 million tonnes with the carbon tax. We got rid of the carbon tax and our emissions were closer to 500 million tonnes, Chris. So we don't need a carbon tax to do sensible things.
All right. You and the PM keep talking up how technology will continue the drive away from fossil fuels. Do you think nuclear when you say something like that?
Well, can I first say that decision yesterday, the announcement you heard yesterday, was, from my point of view, monumental. It was historic, and I was very proud to be a member of the cabinet in this government that made that decision, Chris, because it's about not just the current generation of Australians we're making that decision for, but future generations as well. And you know, I got into politics to make important and good decisions like that one. I'm very proud of it.
So hang on, on that point, on making the decision then, I want to ask this. I've been wondering, when you were ushered into Canberra and you were got together as a cabinet to talk about this, are you telling me that it wasn't a fait accompli, that a decision had to officially be made in cabinet to support what Scott Morrison was about to do?
Oh, all decisions of government have to be made by cabinet. That's what cabinet government is. It's how it works. And I was very proud to be around the table when that decision was made. I mean, obviously the Prime Minister played an enormously important leadership role for 18 months in the lead up to this, and a great deal of incredible work was done.
All right, back to nuclear power.
That decision was one, yeah. So coming back to your earlier comments, look, the Prime Minister's been very clear on this point. But I'd say this. We have, in our technology roadmap, made very clear, our low emissions technology roadmap, that we're looking very closely at small modular reactors. You talked about them earlier in your intro, Chris. It's early days. We haven't actually seen one up and running in a developed country yet. 3 in developing countries, but it's still very early days. We're watching very, very closely. But I'll say this, the only way we will get to having a civil nuclear capability in Australia is if the Labor Party joins with us, because it is too easy to run scare campaigns in this area. We've seen that in the past. We've seen it very recently with nuclear waste in South Australia. Right now, Labor has in principle supported us on the nuclear subs. They've come out in the last 24 hours absolutely against ever having nuclear in this country. The left of the Labor Party, I'm sure, didn't like the decision on the subs. And until we get some kind of consensus across the parties, this will always be extremely difficult. Now, will Labor change? You know, that's a question for them. There's members in the Labor Party who are supportive of this, like Joel Fitzgibbon. I spoke to him today about exactly this point. But the left of the Labor Party have always been strongly anti-nuclear.
Yeah, not under Anthony Albanese. I understand that. Not under Anthony Albanese. I want to ask you a very quick issue. Victoria refuses to accept your changes to the electricity market, which will keep coal and gas power stations available. That's a simplification of what's happening, I know. But as I read it, you want to keep the lights on guaranteed, and Victoria wants to exercise their moral support for renewables, even if the lights can't stay on. Am I reading it right?
Yeah, it's ridiculous, really. I mean, we absolutely want to keep the lights on and keep prices down, and that means having enough dispatchable, reliable generation in our grid. Victoria, it's not quite... Exactly. That's right, Chris. Technology neutral. We just need that balance in our grid. We've got lots of household solar going into the grid, but you've got to have the balancing dispatchable power there as well. Victoria, it's not clear where they stand, but I tell you what, they did a deal on your lawn earlier this year that they're not prepared to disclose. So I don't understand where the Victorian government is on this.
Right. So they've done it to look after your lawn, and hopefully, in the last case scenario, have to use your lawn to keep the lights on, but they won't let you do the same for the national grid.
Well, this is recommended by the Energy Security Board. The Energy Security Board who recommended the NEG. This is who's putting this up. Okay. But at the end of the day, if Victoria wants to shut their coal-fired power stations and gas generators early, Chris, they will wear the consequences for reliability and affordability.
Angus Taylor, thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
Good on you. Thanks, Chris.